The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. 12 massive chairs, each designed for a different warrior race, formed a circle around the central projection. The hologram showed a spreading darkness that consumed everything in its path. Stars, planets, and entire civilizations disappeared into its void. Commander Rex of the Stone Fighters slammed his rocky fist on his chair's arm. This threat grows stronger by the day. We must act now. His crystalline skin sparkled under the emergency lights that flashed across the chamber. Act how? Growled Queen Storm of the Windrunners. Her silver wings folded tightly against her back as she leaned forward. 3 battle fleets have already vanished trying to fight this thing. We need a new approach. The projection changed, showing another system being swallowed by the anomaly. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Each of them led races that had dominated space for thousands of years. Each of them had countless battle honors. Yet none of them had an answer. Lord Thunder, leader of the Plasma Warriors, stood up. His energy form crackled with frustration. We are the 12 most powerful races in the galaxy. Are we going to sit here and watch worlds die? Where is our courage? My people will fight, shouted General Steel of the Metal Corps. But when Thunder asked him to lead the next attack, he quickly found reasons why his forces needed to protect their home systems instead. One by one, each council member made grand speeches about bravery and sacrifice. And one by one, each found excuses why their forces couldn't be the ones to face the threat directly. They were too valuable, too specialized, or needed elsewhere. In the back of the chamber, behind the grand chairs, stood the observers area. Here, representatives from younger spacefaring races could watch the council's proceedings. Among them stood Robert Smith, a plain-looking human in a simple blue uniform. He had been quiet throughout the meeting, taking notes on an old-fashioned paper pad. Perhaps, he said softly, but somehow his voice carried across the chamber. We might have a suggestion. The council members turned to look at him. Some laughed. Others scowled. You? The race that still uses chemical rockets, mocked Lord Thunder. The species that gets scared of its own shadow. Robert didn't flinch. The same species that explored our whole planet before we had proper maps. The same species that dove into oceans before we knew what was down there. The same species that went to our moon with computers less powerful than today's toys. You avoid every fight you can, General Steele pointed out. Your people always try to talk first. You even retreat from battles you could win. We do, Robert agreed calmly. We're very good at being careful, at finding other ways, at solving problems without fighting. Queen Storm's wings rustled. This threat cannot be talked to, human. It cannot be reasoned with. It destroys everything it touches. Then perhaps, Robert suggested, that's exactly why you need someone who specializes in not getting touched. Someone who looks for another way around problems. The council chamber fell silent. The hologram continued to show the spreading darkness. Your race has been spacefaring for less than 200 years, Commander Rex rumbled. What could you possibly do that our ancient civilizations cannot? Robert walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the quiet chamber. Sometimes the oldest solution isn't the best one. Sometimes you need fresh eyes. And sometimes, he paused, looking at each council member in turn, the bravest thing isn't charging into battle. Sometimes it's admitting you need help. The council members looked at each other. Their proud races had ruled space for millennia. But now, facing an enemy they couldn't fight, they were out of ideas. Very well, Queen Storm said finally. The council recognizes the human representative. Share your people's thoughts, Robert Smith. What do these careful humans suggest we do about a threat that devours worlds? Robert smiled slightly and pulled out his notes. Behind him, the hologram showed another system vanishing into darkness. Time was running out, and humanity's so-called cowardice might be the galaxy's last hope. Captain Tom Reed stood at the window of his ship, the Earth science vessel Curiosity, watching the stars. The distress call from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 hours ago, and he had spent that time doing something the warrior races would never understand. He was thinking. "Captain," called Dr. Lisa Baker from her science station, "I've finished analyzing the data from the lost systems. You're not going to believe this." Reed turned from the window. His ship didn't look like the warships of the Council races. Instead of weapon ports, it had sensor arrays. Instead of armor, it had research labs. The crew wore simple blue uniforms without rank decorations or battle medals. "Show me," he said, walking to the main screen. The display lit up with waves of energy readings. "The anomaly isn't random," Lisa explained. "It's following a pattern. Look here." She pointed to a sequence of numbers that repeated through the data. "A pattern means it's artificial," Reed said quietly. "Someone made this thing." The bridge crew looked at each other. They had all seen the reports of the Council's mighty warships disappearing into the void. Now they were supposed to face the same threat. "Captain," called Frank Wilson from communications, "incoming transmission from the Council. They want to know our battle plan." Reed smiled slightly. "Tell them we don't have one yet. Tell them we're still studying the problem." The response was immediate and angry. Lord Thunder's voice boomed through the speakers. "Studying. Worlds are dying. This is exactly why humans are considered cowards. You waste time with research while brave warriors should be fighting." "With all respect," Reed replied calmly, "those brave warriors are all dead. Maybe it's time to try something different." He turned off the communication before Thunder could respond. "Dr. Baker," Reed called, "gather every scientist on board. I want a full analysis of these readings within 2 hours. Mr. Wilson, contact Earth. Request all available research vessels. And someone wake up Mike from engineering. If this thing is artificial, I want to know how it works." The crew moved with quiet efficiency. No battle cries, no speeches about glory, just focused determination. 6 hours later, Reed stood before the Galactic Council again, this time through a hologram. The warrior races looked down at him with barely concealed contempt. "The anomaly," Reed explained, pointing to his data, "is an ancient defense system. It's programmed to target specific energy signatures, the kind produced by advanced weapons." "Impossible," General Steele shouted. "Our weapons are perfect. They cannot be used against us." "Actually," Reed continued, still calm, "that's exactly what's happening. The more advanced your weapons, the more it's drawn to you. That's why your warships disappeared first." The council chamber erupted in angry shouts. Queen Storm's wings spread in agitation. "Then how do you suggest we fight it, human? With sticks and stones?" "Not exactly," Reed said. "But we might need to step backward to move forward. Dr. Baker, show them." The hologram changed to show a simple mechanical device. No energy weapons, no advanced power systems. Just basic technology, carefully designed. "You cannot be serious," Commander Rex rumbled. "This is primitive technology. It's beneath our dignity." Reed looked at each council member in turn. "Right now, your dignity is killing people. We found a way to approach the anomaly safely, using technology it doesn't recognize as a threat. We can study it, understand it, and maybe find a way to shut it down. And if you fail," Lord Thunder demanded. "Then we'll die trying," Reed said simply. "But we'll die trying something new, instead of repeating the same failed tactics and expecting different results." The council chamber fell silent. The warrior races looked at each other uncertainly. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that newer, more powerful weapons were always better. The thought of going backward felt wrong. "How soon can you begin?" Queen Storm asked finally. Reed nodded to his crew through the hologram. "We already have. Our ships are moving into position now. While you were debating, we were working." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Once again, the cowardly humans were showing a different kind of courage. The courage to act without glory, to solve problems without violence, to face danger with careful planning instead of battle cries. The fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of those who were brave enough to be called cowards. The emergency alarms in the council chamber wouldn't stop ringing. 3 more systems had gone dark in the past day. Billions of lives, gone in an instant. The mighty races of the galaxy were learning a harsh lesson about the price of pride. The beta sector is gone, General Steele reported, his metallic face showing actual fear for the first time. Our most advanced battle fleet. They didn't even have time to fire their weapons. The hologram at the center of the chamber showed the spreading darkness. But now, small green dots appeared at its edges, human ships, moving slowly but steadily forward, studying the anomaly. "Report from the Earth vessels," announced the communication officer. "Captain Reed's team has confirmed their initial findings. The defense system is targeting energy weapons specifically. The more advanced the technology, the more aggressive the response." Lord Thunder's energy form flickered with rage. "This is impossible. Are you saying our greatest achievements, our most powerful weapons, are actually making us weaker?" "Look." Queen Storm pointed at the display. One of the Council's patrol ships had just jumped into the affected zone, its weapons charged and ready. Within seconds, the darkness surged toward it. The ship vanished. "Stop sending ships." Reed's voice came through the communications. "Every energy weapon you activate makes the system more aggressive. You're making it stronger." Commander Rex stood up, his crystal form gleaming. "Then we shall fight with our ancient weapons. We will use kinetic strikes, like our ancestors." "No." Dr. Baker's voice cut in. "The system is learning, adapting. It's starting to recognize patterns in all types of weapon systems. We need a completely different approach." The council members watched as another system went dark. This one had been home to millions of their people. The warrior races had never felt so helpless. On the bridge of the Curiosity, Reed and his team worked tirelessly. Screens showed data flowing in from their sensor networks. Engineers modified their equipment, making it simpler, more basic. They weren't trying to fight the darkness. They were trying to become invisible to it. "Captain," Lisa called out, "we found something. The system isn't just targeting weapons. It's targeting specific energy signatures that match ancient war technology. Look at these readings." Reed studied the data. "It's like an immune system," he said. "It remembers what hurt it before and attacks anything similar. That's why it's getting more aggressive. We keep showing it new weapons to fear." The council received this news in stunned silence. Everything they had built their civilization on, their advanced weapons, their powerful ships, their energy-based technology, had become a liability. "We found records in the outer systems," Frank reported. "The civilization that built this defense system, they were destroyed by their own weapons. This was their final act, a system to prevent anyone else from following their path." In the council chamber, Robert Smith stood before the mighty warrior races. "We have a plan," he said quietly, "but you're not going to like it." "Speak, human," Queen Storm commanded, her wings drooping with exhaustion. "We need to power down everything. All your weapons, all your advanced systems, everything that the defense system might see as a threat." Robert paused. "And then we need to approach it with technology so simple it won't recognize it as dangerous." The council erupted in protests. Power down their defenses. Use primitive technology. It was unthinkable. Another system vanished from the display. "How many more need to die?" Robert asked softly. "How many more worlds will you sacrifice to protect your pride?" The chamber fell silent again. The warrior races looked at each other, then at their weapons, their advanced technology, all the things that had made them great, and were now getting their people killed. "The humans are right," Queen Storm said finally. "We built our civilization on the power to destroy. Perhaps it's time to try building something different." Outside the council chamber, in the cold depths of space, the darkness continued to spread. But now, small ships moved through it carefully, carrying crews who understood that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you've been wrong. The Earth science vessel Curiosity looked different now. Its sleek hull had been covered with thick metal plates. Where advanced sensors once stood, simple mechanical devices now turned slowly. In the engine room, Mike Thompson worked with his engineering team, replacing modern systems with what many would call outdated technology. "It's like building a space-worthy Model T," Mike said, wiping grease from his hands. "Everything mechanical, minimal electronics, and absolutely no energy weapons." Captain Reed nodded, watching his crew work. Other human ships were going through the same transformation. They called it Operation Baseline, stripping away centuries of advancement to become simple enough to survive. "Captain," Lisa called from her newly modified science station, "the first test results are in. Our modified ships are practically invisible to the defense system. It doesn't recognize us as a threat." Through the viewing window, Reed could see the Council's mighty warships being systematically powered down. The proud warrior races had finally accepted the need to change, though it clearly pained them. Lord Thunder's hologram appeared on the bridge, his energy form dimmer than usual. "This is humiliating," he said. "My people have had to shut down 90% of our technology. We're practically blind out here." "Sometimes you need to step back to move forward," Reed replied. "How are your people managing with the mechanical systems we provided?" "They hate them," Thunder admitted. "But they're working. We lost no ships today, for the first time since this crisis began." On the main screen, data continued to flow in from the modified sensor networks. Dr. Baker studied the readings intently. "Captain," she said suddenly, "I think I've found something. The defense system. It's not just preventing war. It's protecting something." The bridge crew gathered around her station. The simple mechanical displays showed a pattern they hadn't seen before. At the heart of the darkness, something was hidden. "Look at these energy signatures," Lisa pointed. "They're different from the defensive ones. They're peaceful, like they're waiting for something." Reed leaned closer. Could it be survivors? From the civilization that built this? "Maybe," Lisa nodded. "Or maybe it's their legacy, something they wanted to preserve. But we'll need to get closer to find out." The human fleet moved slowly through space, their simplified ships drawing no attention from the defense system. Behind them, the powered-down vessels of the warrior races followed at a safe distance. It was a strange sight. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, reduced to using technology that would have been considered primitive a century ago. In the council chamber, the mighty leaders watched through basic video feeds. Their advanced holographic systems had been shut down, deemed too risky to use. "Look at them," Commander Rex said quietly. "No weapons, no shields, not even proper sensors. They're completely vulnerable. And yet they're the only ones making progress." Queen Storm finished. "Perhaps we've misunderstood what courage means all these years." Robert Smith stood before the council again. "We've found something else in the historical records," he reported. "The civilization that built this, they weren't destroyed by an enemy. They destroyed themselves. Their weapons became too powerful, too automated. This defense system wasn't meant to punish future civilizations. It was meant to save them from making the same mistake." The council members looked at their powered-down weapons, their silent energy projectors, their deactivated battle systems. Everything they had been proud of, everything they had thought made them strong, had nearly led them down the same path to destruction. "Captain Reed reports they're ready to push deeper into the anomaly," Robert continued. "The defense system seems to be accepting our presence, now that we've proven we're not a threat." "And what if you find something dangerous at the center?" General Steele asked. Robert smiled slightly. "Then we'll do what humans always do. We'll study it, understand it, and find a way to deal with it safely. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't charging in with weapons ready. Sometimes it's having the patience to solve a problem properly." In space, the human ships continued their careful advance, proving that courage comes in many forms, including the courage to choose wisdom over warfare. The darkness had changed. As the human ships ventured deeper into the anomaly, they found it wasn't trying to destroy them anymore. Instead, it seemed to be watching them. Energy patterns are shifting, Lisa reported from her station on the Curiosity. It's like the defense system is scanning us, testing us. Captain Reed stood at the front of the bridge, watching the swirling patterns through the reinforced glass window. They had come further than any other ship, but now they faced a new challenge. "Captain," Mike called from engineering, his voice tense. "We found something in the signal patterns. It's a message buried in the old frequencies, but you're not going to like it." The message appeared on the main screen, translated from the ancient language. It was simple but terrifying. "Only those who walk the path of peace may reach the heart. All others will be unmade." "There's more," Mike continued. "We've located the control center. It's deep inside the anomaly. Someone needs to go there physically and input the shutdown codes we found in the ancient records." But what?" Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. "The defensive field is getting stronger," Lisa said quietly. "Our calculations show only a 12% chance of surviving the journey to the core, even with our modified ships." The bridge fell silent. They had come so far, found a way past the defenses, but now faced what seemed like an impossible choice. In the council chamber, the warrior races watched through their basic video feeds. 12%. Lord Thunder's dim form flickered. "That's not a battle. That's suicide." "We could send automated ships," General Steele suggested. "No," Lisa's voice came through clearly. "The defense system would detect any automation. It has to be a conscious choice to approach in peace. It has to be living beings choosing to trust." Queen Storm's wings rustled. "Then we shall send our bravest warriors. Surely humans don't think they can." "We already have volunteers," Reed interrupted calmly. The council chamber erupted in confusion. "What? When?" "As soon as we found out," Reed explained. "My crew voted. We all did. Every human ship out here. But you have families." Commander Rex protested. "You have children." "Yes," Reed said simply. "We do. That's why we volunteered. Because if we don't stop this thing, what kind of galaxy will they inherit?" Through the video feed, the council watched in stunned silence as the human crews prepared for their mission. There were no grand speeches, no claims of glory, just quiet determination and careful preparation. "I don't understand," Lord Thunder said. "You're not even trying to compete for the honor of this mission. You're working together, sharing the risk." "That's what we do," Reed replied. "We're not trying to prove we're braver than anyone else. We're just trying to solve the problem." The human ships formed a line, each one ready to try if the others failed. The crew members sent messages home to their families, checked their equipment one last time, and waited for the signal to begin. "Wait," Queen Storm called out. "You said these ships have to approach in peace. How can you be sure you won't trigger the defenses?" Lisa looked up from her station. "Because we're not going in to fight it. We're going in to fix it, to heal it, the same way we'd approach any wounded creature, with caution and care." The darkness swirled around them, its patterns changing again. It was time to make the attempt. "All ships ready," Reed announced. "Remember, if we fail, the next ship needs to adjust their approach based on what happened to us. We learn from each other, even at the end." The council members watched in silence as the first human ship began its approach. They had called humans cowards for generations, mocked their careful ways and peaceful methods. Now they watched as these cowards volunteered for what might be the bravest mission in galactic history. The true test of courage had begun. The Earth science vessel Curiosity moved forward into the darkness. Behind it, 4 other human ships waited their turn, ready to learn from whatever happened next. Captain Reed's hands were steady on the manual controls. No automation, no computers, just human skill and determination. First barrier approaching, Lisa announced. Her voice was calm, professional. No one on the bridge showed fear, though they all felt it. Energy readings are rising. The darkness ahead began to swirl faster. Patterns of light danced through it, like neurons firing in a vast brain. The defense system was studying them, judging them. Hull temperature rising, Mike reported from engineering. The mechanical cooling systems are holding, but barely. Reed guided the ship forward, each movement slow and deliberate. No sudden actions, no aggressive maneuvers. They had to prove they weren't a threat. Through the basic video feed, the Council watched in tense silence. The warrior races had never seen anything like this. A crew facing death without battle cries or claims of glory. "Look," Queen Storm whispered. "They're not even trying to defend themselves. They're completely exposed." "That's the point," Robert Smith explained from his place in the council chamber. The defense system was built to stop violence. What better way to prove peaceful intentions than to approach without any defenses at all? The Curiosity entered the first barrier. Light flashed across its hull. For a moment, the video feed went dark, and the council members held their breath. Then the image returned. The ship had made it through. "First barrier cleared," Lisa reported. "But," she paused, checking her readings again, "the second barrier is stronger, much stronger." Reed nodded. "Send the data to the other ships. If we don't make it, they'll need to know what they're facing." The Curiosity pressed forward. The darkness grew thicker, the swirling patterns more intense. The mechanical systems groaned under the strain. "Hull breach in Section 4. Mike called out. "Sealing it now. Manual repairs only. No powered tools." 2 crew members rushed to the damaged section, carrying basic patches and hand tools. They worked quickly, efficiently, while the ship continued its careful advance. "Second barrier in 30 seconds," Lisa announced. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Even Lord Thunder's energy form had stopped flickering, frozen in anticipation. "Why aren't they turning back?" General Steele asked. "They've proven their point. No one would blame them for retreating now." "Because the job isn't done," Robert replied simply. "And humans, we finish what we start." The second barrier loomed ahead, a wall of pure energy that made the first one look like a spark in comparison. The Curiosity's hull creaked as it approached. "All hands," Reed called over the internal communication system, his voice steady. "Brace for impact. Remember your training. No matter what happens, stay calm and stick to the plan." The ship entered the barrier. Alarms blared as multiple systems began to fail. The hull temperature soared. In engineering, Mike and his team worked frantically with their manual tools, fighting to keep the ship together. "Port side hull is buckling," someone shouted. "Keep going," Reed ordered quietly. "Steady as she goes." The council watched as pieces of the ship's outer hull began to tear away. But the Curiosity didn't turn back. It didn't try to fight. It just kept moving forward, determined and patient, even as it seemed to be falling apart. And then something unexpected happened. The swirling patterns in the darkness changed. The violent energy began to calm. The defense system's attack weakened. "Energy readings are shifting," Lisa reported, wonder in her voice. It's letting us through. We passed the test." The Curiosity emerged from the second barrier, damaged but alive. Ahead, through the clearing darkness, they could see something glowing. The control center they had been searching for. In the council chamber, the warrior races stared in amazement. Without firing a single shot, without any display of power, the humans had achieved what all their advanced weapons could not. They had proven that true courage isn't about the strength to destroy. Sometimes, it's about the strength to endure. The control center of the ancient defense system hung in space like a glowing crystal. The damaged Curiosity approached it slowly, its hull scared but its crew spirit unbroken. Captain Reed stood at the front of the bridge, watching as they drew closer to their goal. "Final scans complete," Lisa reported. "The control center, it's not just a machine. It's a library, a record of everything the ancient civilization learned about peace and war. Through the simple video feeds, the council watched in fascination. The warrior races had expected to find a weapon or a battle station. Instead, they found something far more valuable: wisdom from a civilization that had learned the ultimate price of war. "We're receiving more data," Mike called from engineering. "The shutdown codes we found. They're not just to deactivate the defense system. They're a key to prove we understand what this place is really about." Reed nodded. "Send in the boarding team. Remember, no powered tools, no energy signatures, everything by hand." The boarding team consisted of 3 people: Lisa to read the ancient language, Mike to handle the mechanical systems, and Reed himself. They wore simple pressure suits with manual air supplies. No powered armor, no energy weapons, just basic tools and their own skills. The team entered the control center through an ancient airlock that had to be opened by hand. Inside, they found walls covered in flowing script, telling the story of a civilization that had nearly destroyed itself with its own weapons. "Look at this," Lisa said, running her hand along the wall. "They didn't build this system to punish anyone. They built it to teach us, to show us another way." In the council chamber, the warrior races leaned forward, watching through the team's basic camera feeds. They saw the ancient messages, the warnings about the path of endless warfare, the hope for a future built on understanding rather than force. "Here's the main control panel," Mike said, examining a simple mechanical interface. No electronics, no energy systems, just pure mechanical engineering. They made it this way so only people who understood their message could reach it. Reed stepped forward. The shutdown codes they had found weren't just numbers. They were a sequence of actions, a demonstration that they understood what the ancient civilization was trying to tell them. "Beginning shutdown sequence," he announced, his hands moving carefully across the controls. With each correct movement, the swirling darkness outside grew calmer, less threatening. "The defense system is powering down," Lisa reported, watching the readings on her manual scanner. "But it's leaving something behind. A gift." The walls of the control center began to glow softly, and data started flowing into their simple recording devices. The ancient civilization was sharing its complete history, its rise, its near fall, and most importantly, its realization about the true meaning of progress. "It's not just about surviving," Lisa said, reading the data. "It's about learning to live differently." They didn't want us to just turn off their defense system. They wanted us to understand why they built it. In the council chamber, the warrior races watched as the darkness that had threatened their galaxy faded away. But instead of celebrating their victory, they were quiet, thoughtful. "All these centuries," Queen Storm said softly, "we thought power meant having the strongest weapons. We thought courage meant being ready to fight. And we were wrong," Lord Thunder added, his energy form dimming in humility. "The humans weren't cowards. They were wise enough to see what we couldn't." The Curiosity returned to the council space, its hull bearing the scars of its journey as badges of honor. Not from battle, but from choosing a harder, wiser path. In a ceremony that would be remembered for generations, the council did something unprecedented. They created a new position, Guardians of Peace, and they unanimously voted to give it to humanity. "Your people have taught us something valuable," Commander Rex announced to Robert Smith and the human crews. "True courage isn't about having the strength to destroy your enemies. It's about having the wisdom to find a better way." The human ships hung in space alongside the mighty vessels of the warrior races. Their simple, mechanical systems and battle-scarred hulls stood as testament to a profound truth. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't to fight at all, but to have the courage to walk a path of peace, no matter how difficult it might be.